The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Hey, it's Thursday, the 13th of March, 2025. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamal Hartman. She's Teray Tall, and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in the news break brought to you by People's. How are you, Sister Teray?
I'm good, Brother Jamal. How are you?
Well, I'm okay. I can't say too much. Just finished eating my strawberries and my I don't know the difference between blueberries and blackberries, but one of the berries I just had with my strawberries. Yeah. So I'm feeling energized. Yeah.
Where you got those blueberries and blackberries from? From
Sprouts.
Target?
Well, no. I got some other stuff from Target. Yeah, I got some other stuff. That was on Saturday. Yeah. We're gonna ask the audience because look, man, hey, it ain't easy being down for the cause these days because you just forget things. So many things going on, right? But no, I got them from Sprouts. You know, do you guys have Sprouts in like London and Canada?
I don't know. I don't think we have it in Canada. I don't know if they have it in London.
Yeah, Sprouts is like a Whole Foods where you get like all this natural food and whatnot, but it's expensive. It's expensive. I think they're like their rivalry, but yeah. So you got to eat like the produce. When you go to those places, you got to eat it fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. Because man,
So tell us about Target. Tell us about your trip to Target, which you were not supposed to do.
The discussion this morning. I could do that once we got a discussion this morning. You seem like you're ready for a discussion, Sister Teray.
I am, because I'm so curious about these strawberries and blueberries.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you more. Well, greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today, as we welcome former politician John Barritt is coming back. We're going to be doing some election reflection. Yeah, reflecting on last month's election and where do we go from here? So always a good conversation with Mr. Barritt. The daily play is music related today. So we'll see not music, it's geography, name that place today, sorry. So we'll see what Teray can do. She's going to ask me a question. You know how it is, folks. I'm just going to get it right. All right. So let's see what she's got for me. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right. Well, good morning to you, Brother Kenton Truddy says morning to the H family. And we've got Suzanne Ingham says awesome Thursday, Jamal, Teray, and Maya. Blueberries are blue, blackberries are darker with... okay. So I had the blueberries. How can you tell what color they are? They look purple, both of them. Black. Yeah. Anyway,
no, I think blueberries are like navy blue.
Once there's a certain shade, come on, everything looks, kind of similar. Purple, black, bluish, whatever. Yeah, don't tell me my eyes are off.
I mean, maybe they're not off. Maybe there's something else going on. You know what I mean? Maybe Sprouts isn't as fresh as we think.
Wow, I see what we're doing here. She's got eyes 20 years younger than mine and, making fun of mine. Do you wear glasses?
Sometimes, yeah.
All right, moving along. This is the daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure Trucking. Folks, here's the question of the morning. So there's a lot been happening since the election of Donald Trump in the United States of America. One of the things, I don't know if people have noticed, he's pulled grants from places that have not complied with getting rid of DEI, basically. Johns Hopkins, which is a known research hospital in Baltimore, I believe, losing a huge grant, hundreds of millions of dollars. I know a lot of Bermudians have benefited from John Hopkins. He's also pulled from other institutions who have failed to comply, but also private businesses have basically taken, the opportunity to end their DEI programs as well. It's a big argument in one of my groups, and one of my boys, he watches every now and then, watching the IB sector in Bermuda. We got in these big arguments about DEI. I completely have never been a fan of DEI, having been in an organization that drove DEI, and literally once the black people did the work, the organization, the white blue-eyed woman and the Jewish man took it over as if it was their work and done it. I've seen DEI be used for so much evil. After George Floyd, in my opinion, companies took that, ran with it, used black causes to basically make moves for other groups. As Marlon Williams said on this show last year, in the words of Patrick Tannick, you can't boil an ocean of water. That's exactly what DEI did to black causes if you go deep down. No different from affirmative action, which is why people continue to say the biggest beneficiaries of DEI were white women. Show us otherwise, and then we'll believe it works. So that said, in a Bermuda context, how should the community respond to diversity, equity, and inclusion in 2025? Because it's easy to say it hasn't benefited black people. It's easy to say that others benefited, but is there an opportunity to do it right? All right. So that's the question of the morning. How should the community respond to diversity, equity, and inclusion in 2025? But also, this is a simple question. And again, there's no right answer. This is based on how you feel or how it's benefited or not benefited you. Do you believe DEI has benefited black people in Bermuda?
Interesting question. Really interesting question. I also like that you said there's no right answer, because I think that's really important when we contextualize DEI. But I also feel like we have to contextualize the DEI rollbacks that are happening in the US, and also your opinion. Because I think when you say, oh, I'm not a fan of DEI, it's easy for people to kind of lump you into the same DEI rollbacks that Trump and Elon are doing. I think those are separate. I think we have a disempowering kind of DEI pushback and then a form of empowering pushback, where Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump would say DEI pushes people who don't have qualifications because of their skin color. But what I feel like you're saying, and other black men in particular are very kind of vocal about, is that DEI can sometimes harm black people because they put these labels on them of like, oh, you only got this for DEI, or prevents them from accurately building their own spaces and are focused more on integration rather than self-sufficiency. Is that an accurate characterization of like your DEI pushback?
That's one angle. That's one angle. And I think to further your point, it's like Linda McMahon. That's basically a DEI hire in my perspective. And Linda McMahon, for those who don't know, she's Trump's education person, right? And you ask, well, what expertise does she have in a space to make such decisions, which obviously he wants to drastically cut education. So why is DEI never pointed toward other groups? That makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is pointed towards other groups, right? Like, I think it's important for us to draw distinctions between what DEI does for white people, Asian people, Black people, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's pretty unfair to say it hasn't done anything for Black people, because I think it has. Do I think that there is a double standard? Yes, because we know consistently that Black people have to be more qualified to even be considered for these things because of racism. But yeah, I think I get you.
But in a Bermuda context, I mean, how has DEI, audience, do you believe DEI has benefited Black people in Bermuda? I'd love to get a yes or no from the audience. Like, do we, because speaking with someone heavily involved in, basically discrimination and race in Bermuda, one of the concerns, and I said this years ago, and this is a Black woman saying it to me, which really warms my heart, is we have to stop latching on to everything in the United States. There's no comparison to the United States when it comes to Black women, Black men, and race. There really is. In actuality, Bermuda's a sadder case because the population's majority Black, and we're still asking for things. One of the things is, a few years ago, and I've said this on this show before, we had 3 well-known Black women who, on this show, I had to respond to them because they were used, well, black women this, black women that in Bermuda. No, we understand black women do have struggles, right? But this feminist journey that we're on is not comparable to the United States because it's not.
Also,
Well, the facts are there. The facts are there. Whether it's CURB or Department of Statistics showing their data, but I'm not even going to use that data. I'm going to use even hard, real data. Who's more likely to shoot somebody in Bermuda? Who's more likely to be shot? Who's more likely to be murdered? Who's more likely to die in a road fatality accident? Who's more likely to not have a high school degree? Like this is stuff that we can't ignore when it comes to. This is why, again, to that person, DEI should be different for Bermuda. It's very different. But we continue to latch on to what's happening in other spaces because it's easy, right? It's easy. In my opinion, when I see DEI work, I'm going to use Bacardi. What Bacardi does with the black vendors market is brilliant. That's DEI working to me because you're giving vendors an opportunity who probably wouldn't have had opportunities previously to sell their products or services in a space where people are coming that they may not have ever had the opportunity to sell to. What I would like to see built on that, though, is some local retailers actually going around to the vendors to offer them the opportunity to sell their products or services in their establishments. That's something that I would like to see get on that, because now what we're in if you compare it to the US, where we're at, like using Target, is people concerned that Target's removing black-owned products from the shelves. We should never be in that position.
Yeah, well, what do you think is happening in Bermuda? Because I want to understand like what Bacardi's black vendor market is and how it's different from other DEI initiatives. Like, to you, what is happening for DEI in Bermuda? Because I don't really see a difference between the Bacardi black vendors market versus DEI initiatives in companies, because it sounds like they're providing people who wouldn't have otherwise the opportunity or resources to do something and then empower themselves.
But it's economic. It's economic. And I'll put it to you like this. Again, I don't drink, so I'm not a Bacardi user in that respect. But I have a lot of love for the way they move because, again, you've heard me say I don't like the idea of charity, right? What Bacardi isn't charity. It's empowerment. And that's the difference between what they're doing and what others do, right? They're not giving you $10,000 here. They're not giving you a shirt. They're giving you an opportunity to actually take charge of your own destiny. Let's use the other program. They have the bartending course. I forget the name of it.
Shake Your Future. Shake Your Future.
That's empowerment. They're not giving you anything. The only thing they're doing is providing you an opportunity to go out, get a skill, so you can either go work for someone, but they also say you can start your own company. That's empowerment. I'm not interested. During that whole span after George Floyd, all you saw is one thing, and it was so disparaging for black people when the only position it seemed like black women were good enough to have was, oh, we're going to make her the head of DEI. Well, I go on LinkedIn pretty often. You know how many of those positions that those black women were earned or were given have disappeared in the last few months?
Yeah.
And so my point is, the difference is economic. What Bacardi has done is given entrepreneurs an opportunity to be in control of their own destiny versus just giving somebody a position that's not building on anything. It's not bringing anyone through. I don't want to go here, but it's like someone saying to me the other day, oh, well, we honor these people, IB execs, but where do people come behind them? Where's the new IB company? Where's this or where's that? Well, it's not their responsibility, but I take the point. DEI should not make us comfortable. That shouldn't be the goal of it. When you look at Bermuda, and if you want me to answer that question, honestly, do I believe DEI has benefited black people in Bermuda? Ask me where and how. Getting fancy positions and titles isn't progress to me. That
Right. I wanna like unpack it because it's still not clear to me what what the distinction is, because if somebody is being promoted into a position where chances are they were likely doing DEI work before they got that DEI position, insofar as they're probably championing other marginalized groups, like creating programs. Like, to me, DEI wasn't formalized in 2020. Was it popularized? Yeah, but I think the work is not new. So I
Mhm.
guess I'm confused about what your version of economic empowerment is, because is it, oh, you only can have your own business? Because these people are going to be paid for these jobs, right? Like, it's not a free role.
You're controlled by, and I think Rashida Godwin says it best. We spoke about it yesterday, right?
Hmm.
Someone said, we're probably worse off as Black people than we were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. That depends on context, right? And I think we think that we're free and we're able to make our money. We don't have, we have these jobs and titles, right? We think we're free. That can be taken from us at any point. DEI keeps us in that position. Economically,
Mhm.
we need to earn banks. We need to earn grocery stores. That's what DEI working to me is. It's not just about a black face in a black space in a white space. That's how we've forever been. And so when that black face is no longer there and it's replaced, well, where's the real progress? And that's what's happening in the United States. That's exactly what's happening, because there's no plan. There's nothing to really usher through change. There's no Malcolm X's left living, because you put the face there and that's DEI. I've been in situations where you've seen, I'll use the Bermuda Tourism Authority. Bill Henberry used to always say, oh, we're 90-something% Bermudians. Well, how many of those Bermudians are in decision-making positions in the C-suite? None. Oh, we hire a lot of Black people. Our staff's 85% Black. And how many of them are higher than a manager position and a director, VP, C-suite? None. So that's what I mean when I say DEI not working. It's not about Black faces and spaces or whatever. I don't want to say disadvantage is, but it's really about economic control. And that doesn't mean ownership, but it means being in a position where you have the right or opportunity to make key decisions.
Right. So it sounds like to you, this current version of DEI doesn't go far enough. And it also sounds like you have maybe like a self-sufficient kind of model for Black people, because I'm curious, if we take your philosophy like to the fullest extent and we say, no, Black people, don't worry about like becoming integrated in these spaces, do things your own, what would society look like?
I mean, most people who have, I guess, a true ideal of freedom would say that integration didn't really benefit Black people because they stopped supporting the Hearns, Stewards, and so on. I mean, that's no secret. And why do we see such issue with that? I mean, if you've been in New York, the Jewish take care of the Jewish only. That ambulance will go right past you if you needed help. Like, why do we have such a problem with some segregation's okay? It doesn't mean that you hate others. Nobody says it when they do it. So why is it that if Black people wouldn't do that? Look, at the end of the day, in a community, if you exist, you want to engage everyone. You want to get along with everyone. A business doesn't, Jewish people don't just sell to Jewish people. White people don't just sell to white people. I mean, Black people are the biggest consumers. The point I'm making is DEI, in my opinion, works when we have economic power. Again, that doesn't just mean ownership or entrepreneurship, but it means being in the key positions where you are making the decisions. Not just making decisions for what's going to work for your career, but okay, I've been in this industry for this long. What I'm going to do is ensure when I go, someone else has ownership. They take it a step further than me being the CEO. Okay, this person's going to have heavy shares in the company. That's what DEI would look like for me in benefiting Black Bermudians. It would look like having Black CEOs, Black CMOs, Black COOs in these organizations. I think
of Black organizations or existing organizations?
Organizations. The only place we see heavily populated Black people making decisions in Bermuda is in politics, and that hasn't really gone over well with many people.
Yeah, I think then we're getting into much different territory. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a very bold statement that, like segregation is okay as long as you have like economic power. It kind of reminds me of like Clarence Thomas's kind of ideology where he prioritizes like self-sufficiency and kind of economic empowerment. I'm just confused because I don't think that DEI initiatives and economic empowerment are mutually exclusive. I think they can both exist, right? So it seems to me that this very forceful anti-DEI position is potentially limiting for Black people because not everyone wants to do.
But answer this question: why do people fight so hard for inclusion? Like when we were fighting to end conscription, we didn't want to be included. Like why are we so focused on inclusion rather than building? Like someone told me years ago, build with those who want to rock with you. That's what Harriet Tubman was really trying to get people to do. You have to leave some people behind. But why are we so focused on being included? Why not? Why don't we have the courage to build our own? And I
think we do have the courage to build our own.
But do we? Because we always want to fight to be included and get to that table. Why don't we want to build our own table? Why do we feel the need to want to be at that table?
Well, I think when we have to confront the reality that we exist in, right? Particularly in Bermuda. So if you're going to have some influence, you're going to have to integrate with other people. You're going to have to engage with other people. I think what you're getting to is maybe a philosophical thing of a Republican version of freedom that is freedom of that's sustainable for the long term. And I don't even know if that is a model that is particularly compelling. I don't think that empowerment for Black people is mutually exclusive with inclusion. I think both can exist. Do I think there's more work to be done for empowerment? Yes. But I still don't, this anti-DEI stance is so puzzling to me because it seems like we're the only group who sees them as mutually exclusive. And our anti-DEI stance is more of a protest because we haven't been able to kind of develop economically.
Why is it anti-DEI? And that's the other problem. We use these words. Why is it anti-DEI? Why is it not pro-Black empowerment? Because again,
because they're not mutually exclusive. You can be pro-Black and also pro-DEI, but it seems to me like based on this.
But you can also be pro-Black and be, you know what, non-DEI, not anti, but my pro-Black doesn't. That's not my focus. My focus, as again using Marlon Williams' example that he was given by Titanic, you can't boil an ocean, right? So focus on our issues. Why do we want to include everything else? That's how the waters get muddy. Why is it we are always trying to be inclusive? Why do we always want to be included? That's my issue. We always bring everything else. And what happens when we bring everything else? That issue goes on that. That issue goes on that. That issue goes on that. And guess where our Black issues are? Down there. And
but that's the work, right, Jamel? That's the work. The water is already muddy. We're not making the water muddier by confronting the reality. It was just already muddy, right? Like we adopted these racial systems. So it's incumbent on us to kind of engage with it. I think that Black people have a lot of work to do? Yes. I'm with you on that. But I don't see the strategy forward is to fundamentally kind of put everything else on the chopping block, including DEI, which I think has benefited Black people in Bermuda. So I think that's...
How has it benefited Black people in Bermuda? Because you've asked me questions. I want some answers.
I think Black people have been promoted. I don't know if private...
You mean at work?
Who?
You mean at work when you said promoted?
Yeah, at work, in community spaces. Like, I don't know if private companies are compelled to kind of post their numbers, but I know for a fact that there have been a number of initiatives and programs as a result of DEI initiatives that have either promoted Black people who were deserving long before or created spaces for other Black people to come into roles like insurance, reinsurance, like the financial industry. So yeah, I think it definitely
again, that goes back to my point though, Teray, and this is where I think the disconnect is between people who believe in Black empowerment versus DEI and just wanting to be in spaces.
You can believe in both though.
No, but it goes back to my point in this, that space of comfort, like the promotion, the titles, the work, like at the end of the day, there are many Black people who don't work in that spaces who don't feel the change. They don't see the change. All they see is the tokenism. And as a believer, tokenism doesn't feel good. When we see people in those spaces and they're not moving the needle, it's no different with how people look at politics. Okay, we've got a Black premier. We've had our youngest premier ever. But then young people feel neglected. You feel it? So let me use that as an example. We talk about young people being neglected. Well, we got our youngest premier ever. Shouldn't he be addressed? He's not. So no, I don't the same way that young premier didn't really align with many of the young people and their thoughts. I feel that way about race. I've seen too many Black people get those promotions in those spaces and build their personal wealth. I mean, Mark Bean said it when he was on this show, and we spoke about Black CEOs when they got in positions, why they don't do more, to empower their community. And he said it. Their job ain't to respond and empower us. Their job's to their shareholders. And that's the shareholder. That's who they play to. It's not about empowerment.
I mean, I think it's a very pessimistic view of what's happening on the ground. I think it may be the case in some instances, but it's fairly pessimistic and only takes a portion of it, because then the assumption there is that the shareholders are only interested in one thing, right? Like there can be Black shareholders. And also, I don't see how Black people who get into these positions, like that's a burden. You know what I mean? Like if you're expecting them to act in a specific way.
The whole point is tokenism, Teray. It doesn't matter. Again, if those Black shareholders are not moving the needle, they're no different.
But what is moving the needle to you, right? Like you are projecting your own ideology and stance on these Black people to move how you would want.
Using real life here. This is happening. The example I gave of Mark Bean just now, that's real life. That happens.
That's one real life that happens. But then we can have other examples of DEI benefiting and helping Black people, right? So it's like we have to make space for both things. Also, I think it's just unfair to engage with the lowest version of an argument, right? Like you have to take it at its best case scenario. So just by saying that all Black people in these positions are tokenism, I think it's wrong, both on a lot of aspects, but particularly for Black people who had to work much harder to get there. In fact,
say all Black people.
I can't hear you if you're talking at the same time as me.
No, but I didn't say all Black people. I want to correct you before you go further. I didn't say all Black people.
Wait, what did you?
People. What we're having a discussion. We're having a very straight, direct discussion this morning where we differ heavily on this, right? What I said is, at the end of the day, Black people in positions don't move the needle. I've asked you quite a few questions that you haven't answered. When you've asked me, I have answered. At the end of the day, and we've got to bring Maya in and then Mr. Barritt. But what I will say is diversity, equity, and inclusion, based on my life experience, both professionally, personally, whether coaching, mentoring, or building my own company, has not benefited people in Bermuda on a collective. That's based on the statistics that are shared. That's based on socially in Bermuda. And that's based on just real life. Unfortunately, I have not allowed politics or my experiences to compromise me, but I've let them open me up to understand that Black people have not had the opportunity to progress in Bermuda. May it be of their own doing? Could be. Not say all Black people in positions are tokens. What I'm saying is that when Black people get these promotions you mentioned, when Black people are appointed to positions, it doesn't move the needle if there's just a face there. And I have real life experiences, not an experience, that Mark being reflected when I asked him about Black people in positions in Bermuda, CEOs who do not make decisions that would benefit their community. That's what I mean in terms of DEI not necessarily working, because they answer to who? Their shareholders. They don't answer to the community. And that's their focus, to stay employed. So if that's the case, how does DEI truly benefit? We are fighting so hard for a seat at the table that we've lost the way of our ancestors to create and build and make our own table. That's my point about DEI this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's still unclear to me how moving the needle isn't subjective, because you're saying, oh, this person is not moving the needle. That's your opinion, right? That's not a fact. I'd also like to see the statistics that you're referring to, because I do think that DEI has benefited Black people. Do I think that maybe shareholders are still have some work to do when it comes to meeting targets and meeting their goals? Yes, but then the assumption that you're making is that these shareholders are not full of Black people or don't have Black interest in mind. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of dangerous assumptions in like your conception of the world. Also, like, it's one reality. Like if you and Mark Bean are talking about, oh, Black people not having a role at the table, that's one version of reality that you don't.
This morning, you've answered not one of my questions. You say assumptions.
Wait, what are your questions? Tell me.
I literally use real life experiences for you.
Yeah, what are your questions? Tell me. Don't tell me about the real life experiences. Tell me about the questions.
Real life experiences with you, and you're saying assumptions. So at this point, there's no point in having the discussion, because you are projecting, saying that I'm making assumptions, which actually I use real life experiences with you. The only thing I
just want your questions, Joel.
I can do next is call names, which I'm not going to do. But I used a real life experience, real opportunity to share with you. Now, real quickly, you said the statistics, right?
No, can you tell me your question, Jamal? Because I want to answer them. Like you said, I haven't answered them, but I just don't remember them. What were your questions?
What we'll do is, because we're going to go to the news, I'm going to let you go back, watch the show, and answer my questions for tomorrow because I'm already in trouble with Maya for not going to the news.
Yeah, I see her.
All of my questions are there. You can go back and watch the show. But at the end of the day, you obviously believe DEI works. As a Black male, my experience is very different from yours. I don't think it's worked. And the most disenfranchised group of people in Bermuda, I represent every time I open my mouth. And that is the Black male who's gunned down, murdered, picked up on our streets. And guess what? You asked for statistics. The last time you asked me for statistics and you brought these research to me, I told you it's still going to be wrong. What happened?
I don't know. Just send me. I just want to see the question and the statistics. So let's pick it up tomorrow and let's bring Maya in.
Yeah. All right. This is the daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Secure Trucking and Titan Express. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back and we'll bring Maya Palacio in for the Daily Hour News Break if I can.
The daily discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Visit TitanEXBDA.com, your leading tour and transport provider specializing in Black history tours throughout the island. And SecureBDA.com for all your property management, waste management, residential, and commercial trucking needs. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is our commitment to you.
Oh, let's bring Maya Palacio in for Daily Hour News Break. My apologies, MP.
Good morning, guys. I mean, I would love to continue this conversation because listening backstage was definitely, entertaining and informative. Trust and believe, I too have an opinion or two that.
Your opinion's not welcome this morning. The only way you're going to do that is if we bring Larry Marshall Jr. in.
He doesn't want to be outpowered, Maya. That's what it is.
Trust me, it's not about
my opinion lies. Or I was going to actually say to everything you guys were just saying.
No. Let me just. It's not about empowerment. Trust me. It's about Larry having lived experiences and understanding exactly what it is. Just because he doesn't share loudly doesn't mean he don't feel this way. And like I said, when I open my mouth, I speak for people who literally just cannot take what we deal with. I speak for my friends who work in spaces like that, who just want out and don't know. I'm not going to find an industry or job to pay me as much. I'm sorry, but I don't care about making $1. My conscience is the most important thing to me. And if my conscience tells me that's wrong, that's what I'm going with. So no disrespect, Maya, but I'm saying that because Larry's lived experience is one that I can appreciate. And I'm outing him right now, but I'm grateful for him because he gets something that some of our sponsors even would not say out loudly, if that makes sense.
Understood. And no disrespect on my mind or on my part, because I didn't even say nothing or express an opinion. But all right, so good morning, Daily Hour community. This is your Daily Hour News Break brought to you by the good people at People's Pharmacy. I'm going to make it quick as we had a very long discussion this morning. So we're going to start out just by talking about how the new Minister of Education, Crystal Caesar, announced that the current M2 students will remain at their middle school sites to complete a year of Year 9 senior programs instead of physically moving to senior schools this year in 2025. Meanwhile, the Year 8 students at Francis Patton and Purvis Parish Schools will transition to middle school sites for Year 9. So that's something that's going to be happening in the education system. We know that there was already plans based out as to what we're supposed to going to do next. Obviously, things are still at a standstill and a halt as they continue to communicate with each other. She basically said that the middle school principals have provided sound leadership around the changes and are prepared to lead and ensure a successful Year 9 senior program at their respective sites. So they're going to be having more meetings about the situation and the transitions when it comes to the secondary school learning systems. And they'll be doing one. They did one recently, and they'll be doing one again before the school end terms.
Is there a new timeline?
Honestly, just for this year, they just said this year, that's what they're doing, this education school year, because that's what things were supposed to be shifting in 2025. Now they're at a halt at present when it comes to what's next.
Taking the One Bermuda Alliance advice, and didn't they say they were going to stop reform, like put it on hold or something?
They definitely want to build have a teachers initiative of people that actually manage it versus the government that really makes these decisions. That's where they were going with it, truthfully. And I think they did say they would put a halt to it until they had a firm plan in place as to where to transition next. And obviously in this type of manner, no one's going to agree 100%. But I think like always, we've been saying, it's the communication in it that's just been lacking. Every PTA, every teacher I've spoken to, principals I've spoken to, like, it's just the communication is completely lacking as to like moving on to the next steps. But they were trying to increase that a lot more, and here they are now doing more meetings and trying to halt it. Again, we've seen so many schools now being able to stop things from happening or being able to stay. Things that they said were concrete have definitely moved and shifted. It's a lot going on with our education system.
I wonder if David Barrett, the premier, actually likes Minister Caesar after this, because man, that's messy.
It felt like it was a necessary move to make. All right. So in other news, talking about schools as well, this one coming from TNN. I also did get to speak to someone exclusively, but teachers walk out of class at St. David's Primary School. The teachers at St. David's walk out of the classroom earlier yesterday in protest against escalating violence against teachers and staff. TNN spoke with reliable source who expressed frustration over student behavior and perceived a lack of accountability or disciplinary action from the Ministry of Education. Now, educators cite a lack of action from the school's administration, leaving both teachers and students vulnerable to aggressive behaviors from students who have been improperly placed and not disciplined properly.
You just did 2 stories on education, huh? Education's quite fine in Bermuda. DEI, I'm sure, helps that out.
Yeah, that's alarming. And this is violence against teachers from students?
Yes. This is
that's really alarming.
The best, I guess, description I can give to it is just when persons were talking about having students or having schools equipped for different types of needs and like not being able to have them, or right now with not enough teachers as well being in places and people having to assist in different areas where like that's to say maybe they're not equipped to, and it's just an overrun of like needing extra help and needing to actually have those places or those institutions put in place, schools that actually cater to different types of abilities and disabilities.
That's unfortunate. I guess when these things happen, I always wonder, okay, so what's the end result? What's the end goal? And I don't know, as having friends that were educators and came out, things seemed bad 10 years ago. This just seems like, okay, when does it end? Where do we reverse this? Unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. So in other news, I want to give a quick preview to a story that I will be doing tomorrow on the show, be more detailed, but just to get your brain kind of turning a little bit right now, because I'm talking about the Bermuda tourism market. We know that the report came out recently, and I'm kind of looking into the stats of what's happening with different islands and how they're receiving their visitors and how many versus Bermuda and where sort of trends lie. So looking at stats from October to December of 2024, because that's where inside the PTA has a little image here, it kind of mattered here for this recent report at the top there saying what had been done and here right now about the air visitors, which is what I'm mainly focused on, and how in this time period, Bermuda had 43,277 air visitor arrivals for their Q4. And then when I look over at the Cayman, I had to plug it in there at the top, like 2024, 1 October to December, and what their air travel visitors were. Again, looking at just visitors and leisure, so stay over visitor arrival. And Cayman had 107,328. And again, but their population, if you didn't know, is like 73,000. Bermuda's is 64,000. So I'm trying to find somewhere close in those ranges to like kind of grab some data as to what they're doing different versus us. And just one more piece here that I'm adding to it is just like how many airlines do we have versus Cayman Airlines do we have? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because tomorrow's going to be a lot more detailed than what I'm showing you this morning. But just looking as well at the marketing strategies, price of flights, number of airlines, even like what people are searching on YouTube for Bermuda and what people are searching when it comes to Cayman and what they're looking for, what their videos look like compared to ours. But that's something that I'll have for you guys tomorrow. Just to go.
Yeah, I didn't know that there were that many airlines going to Cayman and that little for Bermuda.
Yeah, 11 to 8.
Well, right. Yeah, I'll discuss it tomorrow then. I have a lot to say on tourism, as you know.
We'll close out now with just some weather for you guys to get into your conversation today. But weather's looking extensively sunny spells. I think Taylor also mentioned the other day that we're finally kind of jumping out of those gray areas. So that's really great. So we're going to have a lot of sunshine today. So please get some on your face if you can, because it's always good. And we got a high of 69 degrees.
All right. That's better. All right. Daily, the days of the year. What you got?
Today is National Good Samaritan Day. which is kind of ironic. It's the day to celebrate the Good Samaritans or be one and spread kindness or joy. I also have a fun fact. There's a Harvard professor who says that the best thing that you can do for yourself is do for others. For your long-term happiness, service is what consistently provides more and positive trends of happiness over self-care. That really surprised me. Maya, do you have any specific things that you like to do for others? And Jamel, do you?
I'm gonna say this one thing. I can't remember what day it was. I don't think it was Good Samaritan Day. Maybe it was, but I do recall it being some sort of day that encouraged people to do for others. And I just remember being in the grocery store, and this gentleman was in front of me. And this grocery bill was like maybe like $34, and he looked like he had a hard day work, construction worker. So I was like, I'll pay for it. And I paid for it, and like the look on his face, he was so happy and thankful, and he gave me a hug, and I was like, it's just because I had it at the time, like, you know, and I was just buying 2 things for myself. So it was a moment that I'll never forget because he was just so grateful. And it was like bread, egg, and something else, you know, like essentials. And I was like, your family probably really needed that. And you're probably really grateful. And I just felt like a good moment.
Yeah, I just want to switch gears real quick. As far as Good Samaritan, I just think being a good person 24/7. I'll never forget a brother in high school who's now passed. We had a special ed teacher that took her one of the students in the class, and you know, she was there to do sign language. And one day she must have been reading the Bible or something, and he said, "What if the Bible is just a story?" And she said, "That's fine. It's always good to just be a good person and contribute or help people where it need." And that always stuck with me, that right there. But I just want to switch gears and really ask the audience, it's Popcorn Lovers Day. And I love popcorn. I know people, my mother, when she passed away, had a popcorn business. And we've seen so many entrepreneurs in Bermuda start popcorn businesses. You can go to so many different stores and find it. I think popcorn actually has been a way out for so many Black people, and we don't even think like that. But that said, what is your favorite brand of local popcorn in Bermuda? What's the one with the hard bag?
Glam Pop. Glam Pop. Easily.
That one's so hard to get the bag open, man, but that's the popular one, right?
It's worth it. It's worth it. I don't care what I have to take. That bag is so worth it. It is amazing. That and some pickles, the Glam Pop and some pickles. Bust.
Folks, I mean, Mia calls to Ray pickles because she eats pickles with her popcorn.
Listen,
I just had a pickle on a sandwich for the first time ever.
Ooh, okay. I don't really like a pickle on a sandwich. Don't eat.
So you would eat pickles and popcorn, but not a sandwich?
I guess so.
You would eat pickles and popcorn, but not on a sandwich?
I do eat pickles on popcorn and not sandwiches. Yes.
Maya, have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys.
For a fine taste. Bye, Maya.
Folks, we got to take a break. Pickles on popcorn, but not on a sandwich. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 12 seconds with John Barritt. Oh, my.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Hi there, welcome to Medical House. We're located at number 6 Bakery Lane. I can't wait to show you all of the great stuff that we carry. Come on inside, let's see. Long days, long shifts, you no longer have to endure comfortable underwear. Designed by nurses, we now offer premium undergarments by Swoop that are unique, fun, comfortable, and functional. The only underwear you'll ever want to wear. Who says high quality functional products can be stylish and comfortable at the same time?
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Welcome to the new bulk store, Lindo's Next Level. Wake up in the morning with enough coffee to keep you running throughout the entire day. Your pet at home deserves the best. Stock up on dog food to keep your puppy happy. Need a quick tasty lunch at home? Your chicken nuggets will be jumping right out of the freezer. What's a movie night without popcorn? You can never have too much. Lindo's next level. Why go anyplace else?
Unlock your business potential with BDC's General Microloan, offering up to $30,000 for Bermudian small and medium businesses. Whether it's for inventory, working capital, or equipment, we provide 100% guarantee on approved loans. Simple application, low interest rates, and fast processing. Apply today and make your business dream come true.
Bermuda heat is no joke. Is your AC ready for summer? A quick tune-up now can keep you cool, save energy, and prevent costly breakdowns later. Call 2920881 or book your service online at bac.bm.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Trades Hall. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. Folks, hey, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, without further ado, we're going to find out what is Mr. Barritt's favorite flavor of popcorn as well. You know, whether he likes cheese on it or pickles or something like that. So let's give a warm TDH welcome to our guest for the morning. We've got former politician, and he was with us on election night, John Barritt, folks. Hey, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good. Thank you very much. Too early for popcorn and pickles, though, I have to tell you. I'll be honest with you. I don't do popcorn, and the reason is while I like it, it doesn't like me. I suffer from diverticulitis, and popcorn is not a friend of someone who suffers from diverticulitis.
Okay, that word's big. What is that? I can't even pronounce it.
It's diverticulitis. It's basically an irritation in mostly the lower bowel. And some years ago, I had about 2 feet of my lower intestine removed because it was that badly inflamed. And it's amazing. They go through your belly button with laparoscopic surgery, and it definitely affects you. I mean, you're laid up for a while, but it's amazing what modern medicine can do these days.
Well, we're glad to have you back healthy and
hey, I'm very glad.
well, look, we've got a lot to discuss. Thank you for your patience today. You were with us.
Hey, look, you are having an engaging discussion. I have to tell you, I was very interested in listening to the views and the questioning and the probing. And then Maya came on with the news, and it struck me as well about St. David's Primary School. We're talking about a primary school. Out there, and that's incredible. And then Maya brought up tourism and the Cayman versus Bermuda, and that's a long-standing, age-old comparison that goes on. And as they say in real estate, it's location, location, location. And while we pride ourselves in being on our own in the middle of the Atlantic, there's a handicap that comes with that as well.
It
in
is.
terms, the climate is not the same as the Cayman, and it's not an easy hop from Miami across to Bermuda as it is to the Caymans. And so and we've got hotel challenges as well.
Yep.
So, we have our struggles. And then when you have your I can't stop. When you have your conversation about what's happening in Bermuda and DEI and the advancement of Black Bermudians in Bermuda, well, we know one of the reasons is this country was deeply segregated for most of its history. And that, as I think, I can't remember the poet's name, but he said, it's not that Black people have chips on their shoulders, but they're carrying injustices of the past on their backs. And that I think kind of sums it up, the weight that we have. And then, as you say, contextualize it here in Bermuda. 20 square miles, the pie is very small. And the pie that's growing here now is IB. And most of IB is foreign owned. And as Mark Bean pointed out to you, they're looking to satisfy their shareholders. And anything we get, well, we get a lot of charitable contributions from IB, and they do try to hire Bermudians. I think it's because it makes sense for them economically as well. And that's where the action is. And the rest of us are sometimes dividing up a pie that is not growing. And that makes it hard. But you know who you might get on your show to talk about this? Wendell Brown. Wendell, I don't know if you know Wendell, but he's got to be the big entrepreneur quietly in many respects here in Bermuda in terms of where he came from I remember him as a postman, and where he is today. How did he achieve that? What's the struggle? What's the barrier? And I'll tell you, I suspect he would resent anyone thinking of him as token. I can that's my good guess. But anyway, as I say, very engaging discussion.
Very well for himself, and I appreciate that. And it's interesting because as I speak to a Mark Bean, I speak to a Sir John, they literally, it's almost like you guys read from the same book, but I think that's just the lived experiences in you as it relates to that stuff. So appreciate that, and I know you have the ability to touch on all those topics in depth. But the election, it happened. I was telling Teo, I said, Dr. Brown, Mr. Barritt, and you, Teo, election night, I said, well, this is the way it's trending, and all of you kept saying, no, it's too early, it's too early. I said, man, I see it happening, and you guys are definitely, maybe I'm a pessimist, but this pessimist is usually right when I see things the way I do. But it worked out the way I predicted that night. It did. It happened. It turned out that way. You had initial thoughts, but obviously you had time to digest. What were your initial thoughts on the results of the night, and now how do you feel as you reflect?
Well, I can't exactly remember your prediction, Jamal. But
I kept saying when the numbers came out early, I was like, oh, this is not trending well. I had stated that it looks like the PLP will lend a certain amount. I kept saying that, and everyone was saying it was too early. It's too early. It's too early. Yeah.
No, that's a cautious comment to make, especially if you've been around for a while. But for me, I could, as I told some people, I could have said and did say to some people, I told you so. I was in the newspaper saying that there was going to be a reduced majority. And when pressed, I said I thought the PLP might go as low as 25 to 23 seats. Well, they got 25. So I wasn't far off the mark. No crystal ball. It was a reasonable guess, and I was hesitant to guess. But there you have it. And so I was not surprised at the result at all. What was surprising, I thought, was the turnout. And I think people are still picking over the bones of exactly what that means. When you get when 45% of your voting electorate doesn't come out to vote. And then when you look out of the 55% who did vote, you've now got a government with a handsome majority, which only obtained 28% of the vote, of the overall voting register, and an opposition that got just about 20%. Those are not impressive figures. And while each will say, well, it has a mandate, it's not, when you put it in the larger context, it is not a strong mandate.
And I hope, because it's weird, we like to talk about data and numbers, but there's so many different stories that numbers tell us, right? And let's use this election. The end result was 25-11, but you just touched on the other numbers that matter more, right? But the way the government was going to see it, this is a mandate because they've got the second highest majority they've ever had. Unfortunate, that's the take they'll take rather than looking at the people, the less than 50% of the vote. But that's
they'd probably be foolish. I mean, I can understand them taking that position publicly and going forward on it because they have been elected to govern for the next 5 years. But already from some of the comments that you've seen from some of the ministers in the newspaper and over the air, I think they recognize that there is a problem here. There are people who have disengaged and also disengaged with the Progressive Labor Party. And that's a concern to them, and they're going to have to address that if they want to get another term in government. And certainly the opposition would be wrong for thinking that they've arrived with 11 seats. Because the fact is, if you go back to 2012, they won 19 seats. And so they only picked up a couple of the seats that they gained in 2012. Not impressive at all.
So in saying that, because we had Dwayne Robinson, newly elected member of Parliament, on last week. And as one of my Daily Hour colleagues said, I questioned him. I said, well, it seems like the FDM will have a better chance of dislodging the PLP than the OBA going forward. And I think Mr. Robinson is very short term thinking, well, we won the seats. They didn't. And that's today, but you still didn't make any true inroads. So what stands out to you most about the election? Because it's easy to say, well, we didn't have a great turnout, but I think the story is as much on the OBA not being able to inspire people who are upset, right, with the PLP.
Yeah, I think that's right, Jamal. And that's my view. And what stood out for me, for a lot of people, were the unprecedented number of candidates who called forward. And that, I think, said something. Never mind the votes that they got or didn't get. The number of people who felt the need to stand, a lot of them fresh and new faces as well, that you would expect to see emerge in an alternative party. I'll get away with the word opposition, because ultimately what you want to be presenting in an election is an alternative to the existing government, with a plan that says you can do things not only differently, but better for people. And that did not work because you had so many diverse candidates. I mean, if you look at some of the districts, in I think 7 of them, if there had been one opposition candidate as opposed to multiple ones, and all those votes went to that opposition candidate, the vote might well have been as close as 1917 or 1818. And that says something about what people are thinking. The hardest one to know are the people who didn't vote and why they didn't vote. We know we have problems with the register. A number of people couldn't vote because there's no absentee ballots, but I don't think those are great numbers. But there are people who have moved off the island. And while the Parliamentary Election Act requires people to notify the parliamentary registrar when they change their voting address or they move off island, well, come on. When people move off the island, the last thing they're going to do, and if they're even going to do, is tell the parliamentary registrar, I'm leaving Bermuda. Take me off the voting register. So we don't know how many people there were in that situation, but it behoves, I think, both parties, now that they're in the legislature, opposition and government, to overhaul that act and that register, because it may reflect, it's in their interest, it may reflect better for both of them. Actually, the real turnout was 65%. As opposed to 55%. And it may not be as bad as it was. But what you want to know still is why those people were not engaged. Engaged enough to vote.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is your chance to speak and to change and let people know how you feel in a way that they feel, because that's what counts most to politicians. And I don't mean that negatively or pejoratively. And that's the vote and capturing the vote when you go to an election. And we never saw any polls either. I don't remember ever. You know, normally in past elections, people have made polls known as to how things are going and what's important, but we saw absolutely nothing this time around.
Do you think the parties did polls but didn't share them for whatever reason?
I'd be surprised if they didn't. You know, that's where money is well spent, because it shows you how to, to key your message as to what issues. And we saw the Progressive Labor Party out of the gate pretty quickly. You'd expect that. They called the election. They're the government. But their advertising, I thought, right from the start, was very focused on cost of living issues. And they tried to trumpet their track record and what they have done and what they propose to do to address those issues. And I thought the OBA was very slow out of the gate on that.
Yeah. So we're a month out from the election happening. Where do we go from here? We talked about the voter turnout. We talked about people who may not be here, but here on paper on the parliamentary register. Where does Bermuda go from here?
Well, the first thing I think we need to do is to clean up that register so we get a more accurate register going forward. I think as voters, what we now do is watch, wait, and see what comes with the government, with their throne speech, which will be delivered tomorrow, Parliament meets tomorrow, and we'll see what their plan of action is. We've already seen some signals from the government in terms of the selection of people who are in cabinet and the posts they've been given and why they've been given those particular posts. And the two that come to mind are Alexa Lightbourne, who was in the Premier's staff, and she's obviously got some understanding and working knowledge of government, and she's been put in charge of, I think, addressing the issues to do with cost of living as it relates to food. And also, I think probably electricity and the regulatory authority comes under her portfolio. And some work clearly needs to be done there, or at least be seen to be done, to try and crack that nut of high electricity bills. And then the appointment of Zane De Silva back into the cabinet, who is regarded and touted as one of the hardest working members of the Progressive Labor Party parliamentary group, who's been put in charge of housing, which is another hard nut that needs to be cracked. And Kim Wilson kept her position in health, where they're going to try and advance a program to bring down health costs. These are the issues that I think matter to people most, not so much politically, but on a daily basis. These are the ones that we come up against, where people are looking for action, where they're likely to get angry. And another one are potholes. These are the things that I think drive people crazy or make them mad on a daily basis.
Yeah, I've been reading your op-eds and I've been really enjoying them. And you say that voter dissatisfaction is going to provide fertile ground for those who are prepared to work for change. What does this change need to be in order for them to attract the voters who are dissatisfied?
Well, my take on this is that I think the independents emerged and tapped into some support, in some cases more that did better than I thought some of them would, is because people are looking for a change in the way in which politics are conducted. That's the first thing. And if you're going to bring people aboard, you've got to convince them that you are the person to do it, and here's the program to achieve it. And that's all very well, but you then have to connect it back to the most important dots, how that is going to improve their lives on a daily basis. And you've got to build up your creds, and you only do that, I think, on the doorstep, particularly if you are a quote unquote unknown and you're fighting, as the expression goes, City Hall to make a name for yourself.
Yeah. You've also written about moving away from the Westminster system. What electoral system do you think would best serve Bermuda now, and why?
Sierra, I haven't said move away from the Westminster system. I have my last column that's coming out shortly, I guess, is going to say that we haven't in Bermuda developed the Westminster system as fully as we could have to this point. And I'm not going to attribute blame to anybody. This is something that's built up over the years, starting in 1968 with the not just the introduction of political parties, but as they developed the system of responsible government as opposed to previously representative government. And what we didn't see develop over the years is what I call a network of parliamentary committees to provide oversight, input, and public hearings so that people could get involved in the issues and express their views as well. And what we've seen over the years is the government parties, whoever they are, is they have been about the business of perfecting how they can maintain and exert power and winning elections, as opposed to concentrating on cooperation and collaboration. Because the downside to that is you give your opponents, the opposition, an opportunity to shine as well. And nobody likes to have that done. And one of the key committees, the Public Accounts Committee, which is supposed to provide oversight with respect to government spending, hasn't really developed over the years. It all hasn't been doing its job. And it's had different parties, their opposition finance spokesman heads that committee, and they haven't developed that as well as they should. Now, some people say, well, it hasn't had the resources. Well, that goes back to my point as to how we haven't, I'm going to use this word, I know it's always negative, how we haven't exploited the tools that would otherwise be available to us. And that's where I think a profound change could come in the way politics are conducted. But, that's going to take some generations. We're now, 50 plus years out from the 1968 Constitution order and the introduction of responsible government. We're dealing with the weight of that history and all the negatives that have come with that. But not to say it can't be turned around, but it's going to be hard work.
Alrighty. Audience, any questions or comments for Mr. Barritt, send them through. We'll get through as many comments and questions as possible. One of the things that people, I've been like this from young when I was politically involved. We often speak about the vote and the power of the vote, but we don't usually speak about accountability, meaning we get people excited to show up at the polls and exercise the right to vote. But then it's like, and I don't like to use complain, but they express the concerns over the next few years, and they don't really do much. Sir Juan said on election night, I thought people wanted change, and the result, basically, he didn't feel like it was change. How can the general public, how can the electorate go about holding their elected officials more accountable, since accountability seems to be the name of the game?
That is a hard question to answer, and accountability is a hard thing for an individual person to perform, because, as I go back to the point I just made, we haven't developed the tools for that to happen so that people could be engaged. One of the great things about technology today is that it can be done if we would have public hearings and public meetings, and people can tap in online and either text in their questions or and comments, or come on and ask those questions. And technology is going to give people, I think, well, it does present the opportunity to do that. It's whether or not the legislature will allow that. We've moved slowly towards that in my day, with saying that hearings which heretofore were private can now be held. They have the option of being public. I think it needs to be made mandatory. And the Parliament Act, which governs how the legislature operates, it's dated 1957. I mean, that tells you something right there. And it was introduced in a day when we had independence and a very segregated community, when voters, like people, were meant to be seen and not heard. And back then the vote was landed as well. That act needs to be overhauled. Here's an interesting little fact for you. It refers to people who visit the House of Assembly to watch the proceeding. They're called strangers. And if strangers get misbehave in any way, they get expelled. That all that stuff needs to be overhauled. We need to come into the 21st century here, and to allow for tools of accountability to happen, so people can get engaged and say, okay, it's happening. Because right now, I think a lot of people say, vote. What difference is that going to make? What difference is my vote going to make? Things are going to stay the same. The more, and change parties, I'll get the same old, same old. They all make promises they don't keep. We know that, and but it's leading to a point where I think people, if things don't improve, and there's a good chance things won't improve here, and that's not necessarily anybody's fault here in Bermuda, but the way the world is developing, particularly with Mr. Trump and what he's doing. Anger starts to come in, and when anger comes in, you get some weird results. I can tell you. I mean, we only need to look at what's happening in Washington. It's the only way I can explain in my own mind some of the crazy things that are happening, and the support that this man Donald Trump seems to get.
Well, since we're on that, I mean, we might as well discuss it. The PLP is delivering another throne speech tomorrow. People have said, well, they just did one in November. What's changed? Is there anything in that throne speech that you would hope to see based on what Mr. Donald Trump, President of the U.S., is trying to do or doing?
Well, I'd like to see some movement in the direction which we've spoken about. I don't want to go on because I'm sounding like a broken record in improvements and changes to the system, so that we can improve accountability, and not just accountability, but before that, engagement in the public in some of these issues, because they are not easily solved, and people need to be brought in so they can come in. I mean, there's a headline in the paper today about how the cost of living, food, can be affected if they put in this great tariff on Chinese-owned or Chinese-built vessels in the States. And one of the ships that supply us is a Chinese-made ship that made the cost of may go from $3,000 a port fee to $10,000. Well, you can be sure that'll be passed on down the line. And so these are the sort of issues that people need to be brought in terms of informed and engaged in the event they have any solutions. So I expect after just the systems, I'd like to see something of government here. We need some fundamental reforms there. I then expect to see how they propose to tackle the cost of living issues as it relates to food, electricity, health bill, health costs, and housing.
Indeed. Indeed.
I mean, these are the issues that, I say politics. I don't know everybody's into politics as much as politicians and pundits are, but they do get confronted daily with issues, as I say, that affect them either in the pocketbook or make them angry that they aren't being dealt with, i.e. potholes is a great example. And, these are the things that excite people, not in a positive way at all, but exercise them, I should say. And these are the ones to which I think government has to speak and lay out what their plan is.
Indeed. Audience, again, if you have any questions or comments, please send them through. We'll get through as many as possible. Sean Smith's asking, he said, you mentioned MPs do not exploit tools they have available. Your thoughts on why the opposition don't use the private members bill more often as a way to present solutions?
Okay, first, terminology. It's the private members bills. You want them to bring public bills that affect the public rather than private members. Usually, members bill, you think of companies and things like that. But I understand the point that's being made. Even in my day, the only way it got done was when I actually rolled up my sleeves and did it myself. Oppositions don't have access to draftspeople who can draft legislation. That's no bar to not doing it, but that's usually the big handicap, that you got to roll up your sleeves and do the work. But there's nothing to prevent the opposition from doing that at all. And that is one tool that could be used more than it is. And in the past, what we tended to do in opposition were to put forward motions, which are basically, this House believes that we should do X, Y, and Z to make the same point. And here's an interesting fact for you. When companies come forward with what are known as private members bills, there's a committee of the legislature which is comprised of government and opposition, usually headed by the deputy speaker, who vet those bills, go over them, suggest any changes that ought to be made, and or approve them, so that they then come to the House, usually with very little or no debate. They have bipartisan or cross-party support and sail through. But we don't have the same sort of committee for public legislation, where members on each side can go over it. And that's where, and you could make it public, that's where the opposition could make their comments and propose amendments, and some of them might well be taken on board. I'm sure most people understand this. If you propose an amendment on the floor of the House during a debate, that it tends to be embarrassing or showing up the minister who's presenting the bill. What do you think happens? It gets rejected because no one wants to look like they haven't thought of that, or that it's a good amendment to make. But if you do it in another way, where the feature of the House is collaboration, I dare say there will be a different result. But that's the way we've used the Westminster system to this point.
Got it.
We have another question from Karen Simmons, who's asking, Mr. Barritt, what are your thoughts on parish councils and the potential of having elected MPs as ex officio members as a direct line to government?
I think that may be a way to engage people through parish councils and MPs, if in fact they're going to be fully functioning. The one thing you don't want to do is create another level of bureaucracy, another layer that people have to go through before things get done. That would be the only downside I see to that.
Okay. Quite a few people were, I guess, vocal about throne speech happening, and then the budget not happening until May, right? And I would love to have you back around budget time as well, if you're open to it. But what's the strategy behind that? What do you can you make sense of that for the audience?
I'm waiting to see myself, Jamel. I think that the election was called because the PLP, maybe from their polling as well, thought that this was a good time to go, that the opposition isn't as strong or united or as fully functioning as it could, and they hadn't announced all their candidates, I don't think, and the PLP had been doing it on a weekly basis. They felt they were in a stronger position and a better position to win the government again. I don't know what part the budget played in that, whether it did play a part, because it is extraordinary to have an election so that your budget is now delayed. It doesn't come in until the next financial year has already started. But it's been pointed out, there's provision in the Constitution order for this to happen. So it's not like they did something that is verboten or forbidden. But we're all waiting to see, I think, exactly why, because people are thinking, what is it that they knew that we didn't know, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, indeed. And from your own experience, there are independents who, again, we haven't seen an independent win in this current system, but an independent hadn't been successful since 1989. What are your thoughts on them, like going forward? Did they make enough of a dent where there could be some change going forward?
Yes, in a couple of constituencies, I thought they did fairly well. I think the trouble with independents, and I said this in my third column that I just did for the Gazette that Toraya just mentioned, and that is that independents are fine. And I think the attraction to independents and for the independents around was there wouldn't be a party whip. All right, that's one thing. And I think people might embrace that. But on the other hand, as independents, you need to be telling people, what is your plan for the government? What is it that you all agree that you're going to do as a matter of priority to improve life for me here in Bermuda? And that's what they lacked this time around. Some of them all had a 10-point plan, but your 10-point plan doesn't get achieved unless you get 18 other people agree with you. And people don't want chaos. Anyone can run, but not everyone can run a government. And that's what I think is lacking. And that's what independents, quote unquote, will have to do. And maybe it's going to do away with independents, and they're going to say, this is a new coalition of independents. Some name that shows that there is some organization to it, but without a party whip. And I think people might embrace that, because they don't like when people say, the politicians, well, like they tell you privately, not publicly, well, I had to go along with the party. I had to toe the party line. And that's what I think people don't like. I'm starting to dislike.
Yeah. I guess before we let you go, I think, elections are very interesting. Parties put out platforms. We have proof just from this show last week that people don't necessarily read platforms. It seems like, elections are based on emotion, how people feel. But PLP, basically, as you said, we're very laser focused on the cost of living. From a political perspective, are they going to be able to deliver in this respect, especially when a lot of what happens in Bermuda is dependent on what happens, let's say, in the US, and you see what happens right now there,
Yeah, that's the point I was making earlier. And the way you deal with that is you bring people in on the picture. You don't keep everything close to your chest. You're, as they say, honest with people. You're real with them. You tell them what some of the problems are, and you've got to set up the tools and the opportunities for that to happen. Because, while we pride ourselves on always punching above our weight and being in pretty good economic shape, the world is rapidly changing out there, and not in positive ways, as the geopolitical landscape is shifting, thanks in large part to first it was COVID and supply chains, and then there were sanctions, and we see Eastern blocks developing, economic blocks developing, and the Western one seems to be coming apart thanks to Mr. Trump. We're gonna stand to be affected, and it could have a real negative impact here in Bermuda. And the other thing, to your point, your observation, politics, I think, for a lot of people, is broad strokes. It's not always detail. It is how people feel, and you want people to feel that, however negative our situation is, they're positive about the people in charge and what they're trying to do. And the only way you can do that is by, as I say, by being real and upfront with people.
Indeed. What would you say to the people of Bermuda before you head out, in terms of, I mean, there are people who just, feel like all hope's lost politically. Like, this week, there have been a number of allegations in regards to our new deputy leader, and he was still elected deputy leader of the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party. People just feel, if they're not involved, or if that wasn't their decision, that there's no hope. But what would you say to people as far as politics?
Well, there's always hope. And the hope is, and the way you develop hope and you make it turn into action is by doing something, either by saying something or joining the right group or developing the right group and getting involved. The worst thing that can happen is you shrug your shoulders, you say nothing's going to change, and when you do that, nothing will change. I'm sorry, and there are signs of hope here in Bermuda with some of the youth groups that are developing, some of the younger people, as I say, who came forward as independents in the last election, some of the younger people who came forward as candidates too for the different parties, and one hopes that there will be a change in thinking, in approach to issues, and to how we interact one with another. And I think there are shoots, and I'm hoping we'll see some in the throne speech and going forward.
All right, Mr. Barritt, thank you so much. Are you going to come back right before around budget time?
What do you think?
I think you should. I think you should. No, honestly, it's about knowledge, and I'm glad to Ray has read your columns. You've been doing them for years, and I think our audience reads your comments because they're the ones that said you need to have Mr. Barritt on. Need to have Mr. Barritt on. But I appreciate your commentary as a person who's lived it. In that space, it gives a broader context, a more detailed. I like even the way you addressed the private members question earlier. A lot of people have been saying, and I know for a fact, I can share this publicly now. And this is why I'm so passionate about what I speak on. I'm not a person who just gets on a mic and talks or shows up and gives $1 for recognition. Like, we legit, Bermudians Against the Draft, wrote a bill that was presented by an opposition in the House of Assembly. This is not playtime for me. This is, when I speak, it's coming from a place of lived experience. So I appreciate you very much.
And not everyone knows the mystery of Parliament and how it works, and it's not that difficult. I can tell you. Some of it is archaic and arcane. There's no question. But I was part of a movement to change that with James Jennifer Smith back in just before I left politics, trying to update the rules. They ought to be doing that on a regular basis. Like I told you, a 1957 Parliament Act. Give me a break. I mean, that's early 20th century stuff.
You know what it made me think of, Mr. Barritt? It makes me think of, we only find things important when they seem to affect us. And I think that's another challenge, right? People don't think these affect, that law has been on the book, but it doesn't affect me, so who cares, right?
Well, don't be too harsh about that, because that's usually the way change happens, when people come up against a brick wall or something that irritates them or angers them. And what we got to do is get more people irritated and angry about this. And the way you do that is by informing them. That's why I'm happy to come on the show and explain some of this stuff. Like, I'm not sure people understand fully how budget works and budget time. And it's you might think it's what a strange way to govern the country. Well, maybe it is, but that doesn't mean it can't be improved, changed for the better. I can tell you.
Indeed. Well, thanks again, and again, I mean,
No, I'm happy to come on.
Back and breaking down budget from that perspective. I'm looking forward to it, sir. But we got to run. Thank you, and we'll see you next month.
No problem. Nice chatting with you and listening to you earlier too. As I said, that was very engaging.
Thank you.
The way you conducted yourselves.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll talk soon.
All right. Good morning. Have a good day.
All right.
You too.
Folks, if you appreciated the conversation, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 1 minute, 55 seconds. And then we'll have the daily play and we'll give a daily inspiration and wrap it up.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Novazok Feed and Supply has everything you need, from top quality foods to toys and supplies. We've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
Join us as we celebrate 5 years and 1,000 plus episodes of community conversations on Bermuda's daily talk show. The Daily Hour Gala takes place on April 26th at LF Wade International Airport. For more information and advance tickets, please send an email to admin@bermudacommunications.com. We look forward to celebrating all that's great about our community with all of you.
Did you know 3 out of 4 people say that they have a good understanding of life insurance? But do they really? When asked how much the yearly cost would be for a 20-year, $250,000 level term life insurance policy for a healthy 30-year-old, 80% overestimated the cost by 5 times the amount. Ready for this? The true cost for that policy is about $220 a year. That's as little as 66 cents a day, or $20 a month. So let's put this into perspective. Compared to other monthly costs, isn't getting life insurance a no-brainer? If you can trim back on some of these expenses just a little bit, it will allow you to dedicate the savings toward an affordable life insurance policy. Contact one of our life insurance agents today to find the right policy for you.
All righty, welcome back to the big show. Thanks again to Mr. John Barritt for stopping by. Folks, again, if you appreciated the conversation this morning, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Hey, thanks again to the BAC group of companies, Madacross, Linda's, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring we can have these conversations with you on a regular basis as well. It's time for the Daily Play brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, it's a name that plays today, and Teray has a question for me.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, this is one about our cousins in the Caribbean. Name the capital of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I don't know.
Yes.
Kingston. Everywhere's got a Kingston. Have I been to? Yes, I sure have been there a couple of times. Actually, yeah. See, I was thinking it's going to say St. Lucia because I just learned that one. Castries. Anybody in the audience get it?
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. Rosalind Famous says Basse-Terre.
Oh.
Basse-Terre is the capital of St. Kitts and Nevis.
No, St. George's would be Grenada, right? Is St. George's Grenada?
I think so.
St. George.
St. George Town.
Yeah, but most people got it. That's their.
Basse-Terre. Excellent.
St.
George's.
Nope, you ain't got it. See, I think that's a great question because so many of us have those connections to St. Kitts. I should have known that, folks. You know,
I mean, yeah, I didn't know. My Nana also, she recently told me that our lineage is from Barbados and St. Kitts and Nevis. And I was like, really? Like, never heard of this. But apparently a lot of Bermudians.
Yeah. And I learned recently, someone said this to me. They said a lot of Bermudians did come to Bermuda from St. Kitts, but they were not from St. Kitts, meaning that was the so it's actually a bunch of different islands down there that we actually came through. So important part of history. I appreciate that. All right. We've got to run, like really run. But final thoughts on this morning's discussion and the conversation with Mr. John Barritt.
Final thoughts are, one thing that I really appreciate about the Daily Hour is the fact that we debate, not just in WhatsApp, but also live. And during our discussion, my WhatsApp was blowing up and they were like, why don't you guys do this every day? Like yada, yada, yada. And I think that is missing from a lot of the discourse in Bermuda. So
my group though, right? Because that, folks, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. 1 second. And I think like I just really appreciate it, because if we're ever going to break this gridlock of like polarization and people just not being able to communicate, that requires some level of like contending with each other and debating. So I think this is great. It reminds me of a lot of the debating that I used to do. So I'm really happy that we started this chat, and I'm looking forward to picking it up again at a later point, maybe another live stream. But again, I think it just underscores why the Daily Hour is such an important part of the community and Bermuda, because these are conversations that people typically run from or hide in like a 30-character tweet. So it's difficult to unpack. But in these instances, I think the discourse is elevated. So I think I'm walking away with a lot of appreciation. I'm definitely going to go back because I want to take notes so we can continue live stream. But also on John Barritt, I thought that was excellent. I thought it was like very optimistic. I thought he provided clarity and reason to be hopeful. I mean, like, I enjoy reading his columns, and I know that a lot of young people find comfort in the fact that a lot of the old government members are still around, whether that's writing op-eds or whether that's just around for a chat. It's really refreshing, and I'm just really, really glad to see it. And I can't wait for him to come back on and talk about the budget and kind of decompress it, because it is strange. The timing is very strange. It's never like this. And at a time where people are looking for certainty, I think that creates a lot of uncertainty. So I'm looking forward to Mr. Barrett's kind of later unpacking of the budget. So yeah, that's it for me.
You just made me think of something I'll touch, but the budget, the government year starts April 1st, but the budget's in May.
May 2nd. It's strange. It's very strange.
Okay. Real quickly, if anyone's been watching this show from day one, Sancha is probably, the person that I've debated with the most. And I forgot to do this for Teray this morning. That's the ceremonial bell for when Sancha and I get in the ring. But to address that, I say it, I've said it from when I was in radio. Teo used to say it all the time. My job is not to get people to think like me or agree with me. I don't, that's not the goal. It's actually for clarity. And I think we lose our way when we think that having heated debates means that someone should agree with me. I got a text during that and someone reminded me, Jamel, yo, you didn't always think the way you did. You were once in a space where you thought differently as well. And they're right. We process things differently. We evolve differently. But for me, I enjoy debate. I enjoy discussions because the point for me is clarity, not winning or losing all the time, right? And I think as long as we can provide, conversations that make people think, again, that was the goal, to make people think, not necessarily change their mind, but to make them think. There are things that may be said that you didn't consider. I think that we are moving somewhat the conversation forward. I encourage people, I think we tend to run from conflict or heated discussions. I mean, we discussed politics this morning. The amount of people who shy away from political conversations because, I don't want to stress it. But you should be a part of it because the decisions that are made politically impact you, right? They affect you. So yeah, it's easy to walk away from debate or argument or however or heated discussions, but chances are you'll actually gain more from being a part of them. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be a part of something every day. I'm just saying there shouldn't be animosity when you're walking away from heated discussions and debates. There should be a bit of clarity. And if there's not clarity, what Teray just said, we'll continue another time. In reference to Mr. Barritt, I'm grateful that he trusts this platform enough to have these conversations. I really appreciate people who have been there and lived the experience, sharing stuff with us. When he spoke on the private members bill question, as I said just a few minutes ago, it opened my eyes because I know what we were able to do. I mean, he's right. Like the opposition or others may not have the people to help them write the policy or legislation, but it still can be done. And when we speak about accountability, when I speak about accountability, that's what I mean about not just sitting on the side and waiting to the election and speaking about voting, but you as a citizen can write a bill and present it to your MP or whoever. You can do that. whether or not they take it and do anything with it. But you can do that. And so I say all that to say, the question about accountability I had, we are as accountable for what takes place in our legislature as those people who are elected in there. So thanks again to Mr. Barritt. Teray, do you have any daily inspiration for us?
I do. This is one of my favorite quotes ever. I live by this, and I recently found out that Meghan Markle, or Meghan Sussex, also lives by this. And it's from Georgia O'Keeffe. And it says, I have already settled it for myself. So criticism and flattery go down the same drain, and I am quite free.
All right. Okay. Quite free.
Quite free from criticism and flattery because you have already started it for yourself.
All right. I like that.
So does Meghan. So does Princess Meghan.
Water off of. Okay. Yeah. I got it. Folks, we've got to run. We really have to run. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. We're ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we will be back to do this again with you tomorrow. She's Teray Toll. I'm Jamel Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great day. We are out. Peace.